All right, we are going live. Welcome, everybody, to another installment of Get a Clue in 52 for Speakers with co-author Sue Mathieson. And it is Friday night. We're feeling all right here in San Diego anyway. It's Saturday for Sue all the way down under in Melbourne, Australia. But this is a special week for a lot of reasons. First of all, my wife's out of town. It's always special when she's out of town because I get extra daddy duty and on top of all the other responsibilities. And it really kind of shows me what I'm capable of. I'm having a really good week. I'm feeling good about all the responsibilities. Sue, it's great to see you here. Normally, if my wife's out of town and I'm on campus right now, live from San Diego State, because there's sporting events tonight, my son Brody is with me gallivanting in the halls outside of my office at San Diego. Oh, here he is. There's Brody making the cameo.
Hi, Brody.
So, I have an interest in an abbreviated session, of course. But we're going to see what happens. Patty is joining us, the inner business coach herself. Thank you, Patty, for writing the copy on the back cover of so many of my self-published books. Let's throw that up there right away. Patty Blakesley, inner business coach, is here. My co-author, Sue Mathieson, is here. And I am welcoming you and everybody else out there in La La Land, cyberspace, wherever, to another installment of Get a Clue in 52 for Speakers. And this is the fourth book in the series. We did Get a Clue in 52, the original, then the Entrepreneur Edition, then last year we Get a Clue in 52 for coaches, and now for speakers. And tonight, the other reason tonight's special, it's not just because I'm at San Diego State University right now. It's not just because my son is with me. It's not just because my wife's out of town. And it's not just because Patty is here. But another reason that tonight is special is because this is the last tip of section 1. And I want to kick it right away over to Sue. Sue, do you have anything to say before we get into tonight's tip or today's tip or tip number 10? Do you have anything to say about the collective, the journey that we've been on thus far in an overarching sense? I know we want to get into the tip right away, and we will. But I just thought I would kick it over to you to talk about this journey, the first 9 tips before we wrap up section 1 and preview what we're going to get into for the next 10 weeks, starting next week, section 2. But before we read tonight's tip, do you have any overarching comments before we get into it?
It's just been really fun to show up every week and read a tip. For one, the energy that comes from that, having people like Patty drop in, Margot dropped in a couple of weeks ago, that adds another dimension to the conversation, which is always fun. It's great to have those different perspectives on, the content of the tip.
Mm-hmm.
I think as we come to the end of this, and I'll probably talk a little bit more about it afterwards, is the real sense of setting that structural integrity. I can feel it. And that's what I love about it, is how important it is to set that foundation. And we've talked about it, for the analogy being building a house. You've got to have the foundation. If you're going to have the walls and the roof and everything holding tight, you've got to set your foundation right. So I have loved the opportunities it's given me in terms of interacting with others, being able to share the book, and the response that I'm starting to get from people who are going, hey, Sue, I want to talk to you more about this. I'm really interested in how this might help me. So there's some snippets in terms of the last 9 weeks or so as we come into tip number 10.
Yeah, well, all of that and then some. You mentioned it at the very end there. I thought of it when you mentioned Patty, people like Patty and Margot and others that have come on to join us, or Vong. I know Vong has joined us at times, and for as many as we can mention that come on live into the StreamYard studio with us to interact with us, there's plenty more, handfuls more that are seeing what's going on online. And sometimes you don't know who's watching until you show up somewhere and somebody says, hey, I watched your thing the other day. What thing? What thing? Oh, that thing. Oh, the thing. And it's just, there's, whether we know who's watching or not, we know that we're being consistent. We know that we're showing up every week. We know the work that we put into the book, the collaboration, and what we're trying to put on display. So there's all kinds of levels of ROI, I would say, return on investments that we've made in ourselves and each other in this project, and in the commitment that we've made to being online every single week and delivering a year's worth of Get a Clue in 52. But this is special because it's got your voice so prominent throughout the tips, and it highlights the collaboration and the beautiful power or the powerful beauty of the mentor-mentee relationship. So we're trying to bring all of that to you. And without any further ado, I'm ready to get into it. Are you?
Yep, sounds good. Sounds good.
So we're talking about the integrity game. We're in section 1. This is tip number 10. We're going to get right into tip number 10, and then we'll do a review of all the tips that close out, that make up this section, and we'll preview the next. So, Sue, why don't I think you're going to get us started today, yeah?
Yes, yeah. And before I actually read, so tip 10 is who wins when you win.
That's right.
And before I actually read word for word, I just want to preface that it leads part of the conversation from the tip last week, which was about accumulation of accomplishments, which is in some ways what we've just talked about. The showing up each week has been an accomplishment in itself.
And now, tip number 9 last week, and now tip number 10. Okay, I've got the bannering proper now. Go ahead.
And now reading word for word. So certainly my most recent accomplishment, where I, in inverted commas, climbed a mountain, literally, has a story to it that I can clearly articulate. However, I realize that many of my other accomplishments, I haven't taken the time to put the story with them.
Well, I love pointing to the difference between two kinds of stories. The autobiography is the story we can write about ourselves, the questions we ask ourselves and our answers. The biography, however, is the story we can write about someone else. All of my tips thus far have urged you to look within for your own answers to really important questions the integrity game asks us. The last set of questions, however, asks us to know who we are serving, to be intentional about who and how we serve others. Who does being a speaker serve? Beyond you and your autobiographical answers to the previous 9 question sets, who else biographical wins when you win? Can you reintegrate with your answers to purpose and be intentional about a population of people that are served when you are living your purpose? Your family, the audience, the client or event organizer, the sponsors, your colleagues in the profession or subject matter area you represent? Who else wins? Oh, there's a Kluby snack there. Sue, I'm so sorry. It was a Kluby snack. I thought it was a dialogue box for your dialogue. That's so funny.
No, it's a Kluby snack.
All right, turning the page now. Okay, here we go. I'm sorry. All right, at a high level, the integrity game wants us to be clear about the who and purposeful about the why of our service to others. This is true for anyone playing the integrity game, and it's especially true for speakers. There is a requisite amount of autobiographical work that must be done to actualize oneself as a speaker. Still, most of the work it takes to be a great speaker is the biographical efforts to know our audience, from the actual people in the room for any given talk to the causes we may support with portions of speaker fees or pro bono appearances, contributions, mentoring, etc. Who wins when we win? Who is served by our continued accumulation of accomplishments? Who else partakes in the wealth in our wisdom? The more you can tell me about your audience, the better a speaker you will be.
Thank you, Jeff, for your wonderful insights. Whilst my most recent accomplishment of hiking has a positive story that is easy to tell, it's inspirational, it was fun. Many of my other accomplishments have been a response to pain. Those stories aren't quite so easy to talk about. But if I focus on what did I learn, I really believe I will be of service to others. There is a sense of I didn't go through all that for nothing. I have a responsibility to share my wisdom. And as you suggest, if I know my audience well, then the stories and learnings I share will be meaningful. So much work to do. But I am feeling empowered to get going, to share my experiences and inspire others. Even if I need more time to refine my answers to purpose, gifts, potential, and goals, Is it too soon to have a look at those 8 steps you were talking about? Or do we have to answer the first 4 questions in the integrity game before we can explore / answer strategies or any other points?
Well, to answer your question word for word, it's a little too soon to look at my proven 8 steps for preparing to speak. But generally speaking, it is not too soon to look at any point on the integrity game model, meaning just because I explain the 10-point model to you in a certain order, it doesn't mean the game needs to be played in the same order. In fact, I like to think that each point in the model is its own point of entry into the game and point of integration once we are playing. I may end up reading that one again. Continuing on, though, there is no harm in starting with strategies, tactics, and resources. And I'd be happy to elaborate on my 8 steps to fearless conversational public speaking, but after we look at some other really critical strategies first. Strategies for bringing out your brand. Remember, you can always revisit the other points on the integrity game model as you go at any time. It's called retrofitting, and speakers need structural integrity just as buildings, bridges, or tunnels do. We are never done revisiting and retrofitting once we have committed to playing the integrity game.
Yeah, when you put it that way, it already makes sense to have a look at my brand before writing a speech. You just had me really looking forward to those 8 steps.
Well, they will be worth the wait and are truly the meat and potatoes of speech writing, according to my editor, Patty McKenna, smiley face. And the truth is, you could look at branding before and you could look at branding before and or after the speech writing, as long as your speech writing ends up containing your brand promises before speech delivery, as we'll discuss. For now, as you imagine what questions you have about branding, be clear that, like all 10 points on the integrity game model, the strategies we are about to discuss are never one and done, but always to be revisited and updated. So let's talk about bringing out your brand, and then I promise we will take you through my proven 8 steps for fearless speech preparation. All right, and I just want to point out to everybody watching at home that then, we've got a section for notes and a section to start to exercise some of, put pen to paper. So we want people to be writing into the book and taking notes and going to the back and summarizing what you've learned from the 10 steps. But let me go ahead and, I've got this banner up, tip number 10, but in backwards order. It was last week that we talked about accumulation of accomplishments, which is easy to imagine after we've been intentional about our learning path rather than learning the hard way when we look at a continuum of learning. Prior to that, we talked about building the muscle memory of being an action taker, getting comfortable and getting nervous if we're not in action, believing in the power of taking action, not worrying about mistakes because they're learning wrapped in a little discomfort. So therefore, no mistake at all. We want to be in the rhythm, in the habit, in the muscle memory of action taking, which of course is easy to do once we've made commitments and once we've strengthened our relationship to our word. And what are we committing to? Well, of all the choices that we have around strategies, tactics, and resources, which become more visible to us when we've gotten smarter about our goal setting. Of course, goal setting is the 3-month or 6-month or less than 12-month version of the chronology of potential. Potential breaks down vision, mission, objectives. You've done such a great job explaining that over previous weeks, Sue. The chronology of it, farthest out we could possibly see is vision, then closer than that, but still a far away is mission, and then annual objectives, and then any sooner than annual, quarterly, semi-annual, we leave that for goals. But all of that's going to be easy. All of those question sets are easier when we command and get honest about our competitive advantages and our differentiation and what we do better than anybody else or what we do that nobody else does. And none of this is going to land anywhere solid if we don't have purpose. I mean, this is what we talked about. Tip number 1 in the entire integrity game is, what's the meaning of life? What's the meaning of your life? Why be a speaker at all? What's the meaning of being a speaker? What's the meaning of your speaking practice? You're on and on and on. So with those solid foundational questions that we answer throughout playing the game, we're ready to then move on to section 2 in our book, which is going to start next week. And section 2 is bring out your brand. So just to review real quick, and then we'll open up conversation. Section 1, playing the integrity game, is about establishing our foundation as a speaker. Who are we in this world? Why do we want to be a speaker? And let's answer these other integrity game question sets to really establish our structural integrity. Without foundation, with that sturdiness, now we want to bring our brand out. It's kind of like building the house and then painting and decorating the house with our flair, our messaging, our style, our uniqueness, right? And so that's the second section. And then after we go through that, so 10 weeks, sorry, Sue, you got to wait 10 more weeks before we get before bring out your brand. Then we're going to get into Be Fearless. Then we're going to get into the 8 steps to fearless public speaking, but it's a section. So we got 10 tips total. The first 2 are going to warm us up. And then tips 3 through 10 of section 3 are the 8 steps to fearless public speaking. And by now we know that one of those tips, the fifth step out of 8, I'm sorry if I'm confusing people that are following along, but there's 8 steps to fearless public speaking embedded in 10 tips in section 3. But the 5th step, right, which would be tip number 7. Anyway, I'm confusing myself now. But the idea is it's so important. The outlining, the drafting, the writing, when we get out of our head and onto paper, it's so important to slow down for a second. Don't just say write an outline, write your speech. We're going to break down the elements, the forms, and the functions of an effective outline that prepares us to be conversational and fearless in our actual presentation of the material. And then we're going to wrap up our year in the book and this project with 12 tips on practice building. So let's say we were gifted as a speaker, or we've learned how to get past the fear of public speaking, or however we arrive there, we're able to speak now. Now we're able to monetize this skill set or this ability. But is that it? We can get paid once for speaking or advance our career? No, we can actually build a practice out of it. And then ultimately, we might even be able to look towards building a business out of it. I know people that all they do is they speak for a living and nothing else, right? Personally, speaking is just one of the things I do. Right. And so we're going to end the year talking about the real accountabilities of practice building towards business building. And we're going to encourage speakers to think about beyond just my speech, my brand, my event, this one talk, this one keynote, this one engagement, and to imagine a practice, a calendar full of events and engagements and everything else that can come from it, and all of the other accountabilities that need to be met to get it there. Right. So having said all of that, wow, Sue. And Patty, I can't wait to hear your voice. What do you guys have to say as we, open up the conversation around tip number 10, which closes out the integrity game before we get into section number 2 of bringing out your brand?
Yeah, well, before I say anything, I want to say thanks, Patty, for joining us. Always good to see you, and happy International Women's Day to all the ladies and the men that support us.
I know it's an amazing day, isn't it?
It is. So, Patty, any thoughts, comments? You know the integrity game framework, and we're coming to the end of the section.
Well,
and particularly serving.
One of the things I wanted to share, because I haven't been here for a while, is that in different venues that I've been in, different workshops and presentations, people really hit hard on purpose. And which is, perfect. They need to. But sometimes I think they look at the purpose and hold so tight to that they forget the rest of the integrity game. They don't go to where we are right now is, how you are serving others. I know what my purpose is. I want to do this. I want to do this. However, it's not it's not as expanded as I love the integrity game.
Yeah. And do you think in doing that, in holding on so tight to just purpose, that people get stuck in making that a concrete statement almost? And the beauty of the integrity game is that it allows exploration and expansion and growth, and so that it's fluid almost. Whereas you don't get that if you just focus on purpose only.
Right. It's like when I teach karate to my students, if I only teach them the moves, they don't really expand to the actual functionality in a kata or in a attack response type of situation. So you have to kind of like understand that purpose is a priority, yes, but there are other equal priorities.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things that comes up for me as I hear your contribution, Patty, is something that was mentioned briefly. Well, maybe not so briefly in the tip, which is the intersection. Right, we're playing the integrity game, which is to integrate, and we're looking at the intersection between autobiographical and biographical. So
Right.
my purpose is the autobiographical, but we don't integrate and balance that with the biographical. We're gonna be in trouble.
Exactly. You know, the what's in it for me being the most important channel, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. We're making the point in various points throughout the first 10 tips, and maybe at other points in the book. But like, it's the balance between my purpose and what's my audience's purpose for being here. So you're playing the game to answer these questions for yourself, but you're playing at a mastery level if you can anticipate what other people's answers might be, and then find the balance to structure my purpose. How am I going to achieve my purpose in a way that serves the audience's purpose, right? But it's not just my audience, right? Like Brody is here with me. Brody, say hello again. There's Brody, right?
Hey, Brody.
He wins when I win, right?
Yeah.
So we want to tip number 10 here is who wins when I win. So it's more than just my audience, right? It's the organizer. It's the next event is going to win when I win. And even when I lose, the next event wins because I've made a mistake that I'm going to learn from and get better at, right? So we want to expand our understanding of all the people, the ripple effect of who, and like you said, Patty, and it's like, we see a lot of autobiographical, marketing out there, a lot of autobiographical, me. And I think that I don't say that to eliminate it. I just say that to pray that we bring it into balance with a biographical perspective as well. But every game starts within. Every job is an inside job. What's in it for me is everybody's favorite radio station. We have to get that figured out first. But at least the integrity game, like you are pointing out, Sue, it's not linear, and it's not limited to just my purpose alone and my answers alone. What we're doing as we bring out these questions in this context is encouraging the balance and the integration between my purposes and who I serve, my purpose and my audience's purpose. As I be who I want to be as a speaker in this world, and as I say what I want to say as a speaker in this world, who else wins when I win?
And I think when we focus on getting that balance, or try and move towards getting that balance right, I don't know that we ever truly arrive there, but if we make that the goal that where we're aiming toward, we're going to show up more effectively. And it's that intersection that you're talking about between the autobiographical and the biographical, and the more that we can leverage or make one, improve one, and keep improving the other, what's that saying that says a rising tide lifts all boats?
Yeah.
So the more that we do that, everybody wins.
And then people can start
by
to
getting
detect
that intersection right.
Yeah, Patty, you're nodding your head. I don't know if that's an agreement or if it's a prep because you have something to add or share or contribute. I'll always bite my tongue if you've got something.
Having lived on an island for a long time, I love the thought of the high tide lifts all boats. But you're absolutely right, Sue, that as we integrate, as we follow the integrity game, then we expand other people because we are modeling it for them.
Yeah,
and we get the benefit of we also grow because we're getting the benefit of their interaction and what they bring to our lives. Yeah.
It's interesting. I wonder if you guys can relate to this, but without getting into the details, unless you ask me to share the details, I'm happy to. But without getting into the details, I recently, literally less than 45 days ago, met a woman in a online networking thing for the very first time, and it was easy for me to pick up on what she was doing, right? And of all the people in the group, we're encouraged to introduce ourselves to each other and so forth. I reached out to her right away. I said, hey, I heard how you introduced yourself and what you promoted inside of the event, and I want to introduce myself, etc. And we had one Zoom meeting, and it was like one of those things. I was sitting in my car, right? Because that's just the timing of it all. And in like less than 30 minutes, here's what the comment came about. I just have a really good feeling about you. So, in less than 45 days, now I'm going to be speaking at her online event next week, and I'm going to be a supporting coach for her event. She's not paying me any money to be there. There may be compensation on the back end or whatever. I don't care. Right. But we figured it out. And she just has a really good feeling about me. And she doesn't know me hardly at all. Right. She could search me online, and we travel in similar circles, and we both got to that, environment, and she's smarter than the average bear. So it's not too hard to smell it out. But there's a reason I'm bringing all of this up, right? Like, imagine that, slotting me in for 30 to 40 minutes in her 3-day event where she's going to have, a high ticket offer available, right? For people that really want to invest in themselves and take off, right? And without getting into the details of it, for her to trust me and invite me and offer me back-end compensation on the performance of the event. And are you with me? And it's like after one Zoom, after less than 30 minutes. And why do I bring all of this up? Well, I believe that I'm vibrating with integrity.
Yeah.
That my real-time awareness of my own purpose, but my eyes head up and eyes up for everybody's purpose, how quickly I can communicate what I believe to be your purpose in the same breath as I can communicate my own. And so that others can see the integration of where our purposes align so much easier. I'm trying to, like you people want to talk to you. So don't you feel more magnetic, more attractive? Like people are more curious. People are proactively coming up to you and asking you questions. But I'll never forget this feeling I got where this woman that I look up to and respect and admire for what she's doing in this world. And I had to introduce myself to her. She says, I've got a really good feeling. I just gotta almost like, I don't know what but for some reason, right? And of course I'm going to prove her right. You know that. But I wonder, without the integrity game, if something like that would have emerged, or if my energetic reputation precedes me. My energy fields are out to here because I have structural integrity. Now, I'm not perfect. I'm retrofitting myself all the time. I wrote the damn integrity game because I want more integrity in my life. So this is like a product of self-deprecation to some degree, like all of our work is. We all do the work for others that we want for ourselves, right, on some level. But I really do think that the integrity game has me upright, has me retrofit, has me stable, has me sturdy. I show up with a command of what I'm doing in this world, and I've got room in my head left over to imagine who else can win when I win. And I wonder if you have comments on that, if you have a similar experience that your vibrational reputation is preceding you and making you more magnetic and attractive for the opportunities you really want.
I'm certainly noticing it more and more.
Yeah.
And I believe the more that I practice what I talk about and strengthen my own resolve in terms of playing the integrity game day in, day out, I sense that is becoming attractive to others, and people who are genuinely noticing there's something about you that I want to talk to you more about.
Yeah,
and
it's great.
That was
it's
the
like,
message.
It's like careful what you ask me, because I don't have it all figured out yet. But I'm glad you noticed what I figured out so far. But go ahead.
Well, one lady messaged me on LinkedIn during the week. She said she had been watching the recording from last session, and she made a comment about what we were talking about, and she said, I really want to talk to you more. And so we've got a time this week to chat.
Wonderful. I mean, it warms my heart. I have this concept of the integrity game, and it's a 10-point model. It's its own book. But when you and I were collaborating on what we wanted to do for this project, well, what are the sections going to be? Let's brainstorm with the tips. And when it came to me, like, oh my God, a whole section, we could just do 10 tips, the integrity game, but relate it to being a speaker. I was so thrilled because obviously, this is a baby that I've given birth to, and to know that it lives and breathes around the world, right? And that you're getting that type of response when you're showing up in the world. I know you had a speaking event where you had like 5 minutes to talk about the integrity game, and whatever you're repurposing our recordings and sending them out. It makes me so happy. So I'm committed to supporting anybody that wants to play and promote this game, because when we play, we win.
Yeah, absolutely.
Patty, what do you got? You got something brewing up there? Anything else that you want to say or add? I mean, I'm very eager to get into last call a little bit early. My son Brody, God bless Brody, he's doing the best he can to behave himself and not cause too much distraction. But he's such a curious fellow, and he's got his yo-yo, and I've given him something to draw with, and he's a good kid. I want to get him out to the sporting event. Dad, I want to go to Aztec basketball. And so the baseball game started 45 minutes ago, and then the basketball game starts in an hour and 15 minutes. But I asked Brody real quick to share with you guys. I said, Brody, what do you love about San Diego State basketball? He's like, it's just such a welcoming place. I love the spirit when something good happens and everybody screams, and live sporting events and 15,000 people all focused on one thing and reacting in unison. It's fun to watch him get the bug and to do it in Aztec land. So you guys know I'm in my sweet spot right now on campus in my office with my son. And so I'm eager to get into last call and move on and just be a dad. But before I do, let me create the appropriate space for you guys to share, ask, comment. And here we go. Jokes, riddles, haikus, limericks, etc. But you don't feel hurried or pressured or stressed. What do you got, Patty?
Well, I came across this quote from Anne Frank, and I thought it was really beautiful. So since you're asking for last call, I'm going to share it.
That's great. Wonderful.
How wonderful it is that nobody needs to wait a single moment before starting something to improve the world.
That's right.
I love it.
Not a single moment. And we could just end it right there. But I think I want to tack on, it triggers my recall for this notion about a butterfly flapping its wings on one side of the world and creating a tsunami on the other side. So I wrote this book on one side of the world and created a tsunami on the other side.
In Australia.
Right? Oh, I don't know how that just fell into my lap, Patty, but thank you for that. Right? If I had to do this all by myself, I'd have to call it a darn Klunami, and we don't want that. So we can keep calling it a tsunami, deciding on how you spell it, but we're getting silly on a Friday, right? It's been, Patty, I don't know if you caught the opening remarks, but my wife's out of town this week. She's out of town next week. It's like the third or fourth trip she's made this week. She's got another 2-weeker in April. So I'm power daddy duty and whatever I can do to support my international woman of the world. And I do want to comment on all of the, how much more prominent I'm seeing the celebration of International Women's Day. Forgive me for not knowing exactly the name of it, but I've got friends all around the world. So I started seeing posts yesterday. And so when I saw a post this morning, my first reaction, that was yesterday, wasn't it? Oh no, she's in Singapore. Okay. Right. So, but yeah, I just want to say hats off to all of the amazing women in the world. And my last call, my comment is my personal belief. This has nothing to do with speaking and being a speaker in the book and the integrity or any of it. It's just my appreciation for women. I want to share my belief that there's nothing stronger on the planet than a woman. Nothing. The ability to reproduce has got to be the most incredible thing on this planet. And it's my belief that men, God bless us too, we'll never get to experience what it's like to have life grow inside of us. And it's for that reason that I think that we just start off at a loss. Like I just think because of the master plan, the way of the world, we're inferior to women. We don't have that power. Our greatest power is our ability to commit. I think that's my personal belief, that the woman's greatest power is ability to reproduce, man's greatest power is ability to commit. And so, men, you got to stay committed to your women, to the women in your lives, your moms, your daughters, your nieces, the aunts, the sisters, the spouses, even exes. You got to stay committed. I will always love you more than I will ever miss you. Okay. And even if we can't live in the same place anymore, I'm going to love you, love you, love you. My brother right now is living with his ex-mother-in-law. Go figure. So it's important to stay respectful of women, to keep supporting them in all ways that we can, to be honest about how inferior we are, which is why we're overcompensating with all this patriarchy and all this crap that exists in the world. And I just want to do what I can to be honest about the fact that I look up to women. I think I'm inferior to a woman because I will never feel what it's like to have life reproduce inside of me. The best, and it was such an awkward feeling, you guys, when Marianne would be like, oh Jeff, and she would grab my hand and she would go, feel this. And I'm feeling, I'm like this. I'm like, what am I? And even if I got lucky enough in that moment to feel a kick, I was a gazillion years away from feeling what Marianne felt.
Yeah.
And it was like an inch away, but I'll never know what that feels like. And I'll tell you what, I couldn't wait for the baby to come out so I could start being a dad, so I could start helping, so I could start contributing, so I could start feeling what she was feeling, and the glow, and we'll never get that. And so I wish we would just be honest about how awesome that is and start supporting it and cherishing it and preserving it and protecting it and empowering it, rather than squashing it and trying to control it and try all the stuff that we see going on in the world. I just wanted to speak my piece about the power of women and how dedicated I am to supporting women. I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling now, but cut me off if I start to speak out of turn. But I love you guys. I love everybody on the planet. But women, we'd be lost without you. Let's just be honest about it. We'd be lost. We wouldn't exist without you. On and on and on. So I want the world to start telling the truth about how powerful women really are. And I'm pleased to see all of the posts and all of the people that are emailing and posting, and how okay it is and how safe it is and how needed it is to really just let it fly. Hey, women. And it's just sucks that one day you get one day, every day.
But how much better, Jeff?
That's my piece.
Totally agree with all of it. How much better, though, when we each play the integrity game?
Well, that's what makes that's what keeps it rolling, right? But it's still like, you don't need us to reproduce. You don't, you know what I mean? It's like sperm and egg. Yeah, we're getting into a different conversation now, but you know what I mean? It's just, anyway, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. I just want to leave it at my absolute utmost respect for women, my commitment to support women any way, shape, or form that I can. My belief that we're inferior and we're always playing this game of catch up, but it doesn't have to be awkward or out of balance or overcompensated. We can bring the integrity game into balance, get male and female, masculine and feminine. The whole we can bring it into balance. We can integrate and make it all work. We don't have to control and underappreciate and undercompensate or whatever it is, right? There's so much stuff that we see in the world. I mean, last night, our State of the Union address, the Republican response, and there's so much criticism about why was this person selected to do a Republican response with a kitchen in the background? Like, of all of the backgrounds, why are you putting the woman in the kitchen? Like, so much criticism about that. We got to do what we can to interrupt the stereotypes and break the barriers, break them all. I'm not talking about Republican versus Democrat. I'm talking about stereotypes. Like, anyway, I look up to powerful women. My boss here at campus, San Diego State, Dr. Heather Canary, powerful woman who, has gotten more academic excellence in her pinky nail than I've got in my entire, I just am committed to respecting and looking up to women and serving women and doing everything I can to support women. And I think that the narratives that we have to deal with in this world are tired and old, and they're in need of some renovation and some retrofitting. So I'm not well spoken about this. I didn't prepare remarks, but once Women's Day got mentioned, I couldn't hold back there. I have some thoughts about this. How's that, Patty?
We appreciate your respect.
It's funny too, because I heard it so many times today. Oh, congrats to all the women out there and the men that support them. That's part of the evolution. It's like it's so important to support women, but guess what? You can't do that out of balance either. So
Yep.
I'm appreciating it and the men that. So it's like when we're never just celebrating women, are we? All right, you follow,
Yeah.
right? Anyway, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole here on a Friday with a lack of sleep, wife out of town, and so many responsibilities on my calendar. But I'm happy to end the week this way with so much love in my heart and appreciation for you two. And you guys are super special in my life, and I appreciate you very much. So thank you for being here. Anything else? Last call as we wrap up.
No, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for a great section 1. Woohoo! 10 weeks. And,
awesome. Go with Brody.
Yeah, Brody's like, Dad, does this mean you're finishing now? Dad, are you like? It sounds like you're getting ready to done. But
yeah,
Dad,
Brody.
He's like, Dad, you're still talking. Dad.
Go have a great time. See you, Brody.
All right, thanks, you guys. I love you guys very much. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.
Okay, bye.
Something.